Here we have our dog class, and we have the private data members, and then a couple of functions that allow us to access the private data members. Recall that when data is private, you cannot access it from the outside world, and in this case, the outside world is main. If we want to create a dog object and put meaningful data into the variables like the dog's name, the dog's breed, the dog's chip number, then we have to provide some kind of roundabout access, and we do that in the form of functions. In this case, we have the set data and the show data functions. Now, we have another way of doing this, and before we look at that, I want to just run this program. What we have, oh, and by the way, I did remove a couple of the functions just to make this shorter and neater for the discussion. I removed the bark and the growl functions, but we could have left those in there. All right, so here I am creating a dog object, just like in the last video, and I'm going to call the show data function before I do anything else. Notice I didn't put in a call to set data. This dog does not have meaningful data in it right now. So let's run that and see what we get. Okay, so for the name, we get nothing. Okay, the breed is nothing. It starts out. These are strings, and we're using the standard C++ string from the library, which we use by checking that out, the library up at the top there. And by default, you get just like a nice blank, a null string, meaning nothing in it. Now, the chip number is another story. That's an integer, an unsigned integer, in fact, and we just get some kind of garbage, gobbledygook number that's left over in memory. So that is what you get when a dog is created in this program and you don't populate it yet with anything meaningful. Now, there's a way, and this is an important technique that I want you to know. There's this thing called a constructor, okay, and this is a function. It's a constructor. Okay, you also see that abbreviated CTOR, but that's a constructor, and this is a very special function. It's a special public member function, and its job is to initialize an object to meaningful values at the time it is created. Okay, meaning if I create a dog object, there is a way that I can set it up with meaningful data, a name, a breed, a chip number, all decided by me at the time that the object is created in memory. So I wouldn't have to put in a call to set data. And my object just hits the ground running with meaningful values and is ready to use. Okay, so let's do a constructor. Now, the first thing you'll notice about the constructor is that even though it's a function, it has no return type. So we're not even going to type void, nothing. You just dive into the name of the function. And the name of the function in this case with a constructor, it's always the exact same name as the class itself. And that's how you can spot a constructor from a mile away. There is no return type, and the name is the same name as the class. Okay, so we're going to type dog, and then let's, you know, the whole point of this is to set up the dog with meaningful data at the time it's created. Well, we have to provide that meaningful data, and we use parameters to do that. So we'll do a string for the name coming through, a string for the breed, and then we have an unsigned int for the chip number. Okay, just like our set data, basically. But the difference, and you're probably like, yeah, what is the difference? In fact, I can copy this because I used all the same parameter names, in fact. And there it is. So looking at the constructor and set data, which we used before, there's really not a lot of difference at all. The difference lies in the timing of when these are executed. The fact that this constructor is going to be executed the moment we create the dog, and we don't have to explicitly call it. Set data, on the other hand, is not automatically executed. We would have to explicitly call it. Okay, so let's create the dog now. We'll redo this, and we'll use our constructor to populate the dog's variables at the time it's created. So we'll say dog D1, and then watch. I'm going to open a paren there, and you see it's the little sign pops up letting me know that it's expecting parameters. So, or arguments for the parameters, I should say. So why don't we provide, we said Max was a Great Dane, and what, the chip number was 12345. Okay, so there we go. So you see, this kind of kills two birds with one stone. You are creating the object and also populating the object with meaningful data at the time it's created. So let's go ahead and run that. Okay, and there's Max. All right. So that's a constructor. Another thing about constructor, oh, wait, let me show you this. What if I said, oh, you know what, I want to go back to creating just a blank dog, kind of a blank slate dog with garbage data in it. I'm going to go ahead and say dog D2, because once the dog class is typed out and in place, you can create as many dogs as you need, okay? So anyway, now I have D2 in the program. I'm going to run this, okay? And now I have an error, okay? And the error says no appropriate default constructor available. Basically, what this means, now this is kind of weird, so bear with me. Even in the last video, before we even started talking about constructors, you actually did use a constructor. It was like this invisible constructor behind the scenes, and it looked something like this. It was just a nothing constructor with an empty body, and it didn't do anything for us. That's called the default constructor. And you get that regardless. Okay, like I said, it was there in the previous video. It executed, even though we didn't explicitly type it out, it was there. It's like a freebie constructor. Okay, now you don't have to type that thing out unless you start to add another version of the constructor. Basically what we have here are overloaded constructors. Okay, right? Remember the notion of overloaded functions? We have same name, dog and dog, different parameter lists. This one has nothing coming through the door. This one has 3 things coming through the door. Okay, and so that is now as soon as you start overloading your constructors, you have to type in the default if you plan on using it. Okay, before I wasn't using it. Before I came in here and tried to create that blank slate dog, before that, I wasn't trying to use the no argument constructor or the empty parameter list constructor, so it wasn't an issue. But as soon as I said, oh yeah, I want to create a blank dog, it's saying, wait a minute, you didn't code the default. It worked for us in the previous program, but as soon as we started getting fancy here and overloading the constructor, then we have to go back in and type that default. So you know what, rule of thumb, when in doubt, just go ahead and throw down that empty constructor. Even if you don't plan on using it, at least you won't get hit with that error if by chance you need to use it. So I would say get in the habit of always just typing that out, that default constructor. Okay, so so that's like the nothing dog there, and that'll run. I'll go ahead and build that. Uh-oh. Having a unforeseen problem here, and I'm going to have to shut down. No, I guess I'm okay. All right, so let's see. No, I have my default constructor. Let's see here. Okay, I guess that was just a fluke. Oh, I didn't call a show data on D2, but we would have just seen that garbage data, meaning nothing for the name, nothing for the breed, and then some long gobbledygook number for the chip number. So there you have it. Overloaded constructors. This is a technique that I want you to know. Remember, no return type and same name as the class. That is how we code a constructor.